Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business. They'll find you exactly the right insurance so you're covered. They'll do everything they can to get you the best price. Sometimes it may be in bundles, but they're always working for you. Customer service means everything. All at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. We're in the Sunbury Motors studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai, great pre-owned inventory. Great time to buy. Great time to deal. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. Our play-by-play calls of the day. The Nittany Lions make a comeback.
Sessom sprints down the floor. Far corner. Good job by Myron Jones to get it to Dredd. He drives. Top of the key, Lundy. Lundy in the lane. Jump stop. Fires. Got it. Penn State leads. Hara, top of the key. Far wing, driving to his right, Dredd. Near wing, 3, Lundy. Got it. 4-point Nittany Lion lead with 32 seconds to play.
Can't do it much better than that, Steve. The hottest man in Maryland. He's got 30.
Ended up with 31. Now, again, those calls, while having a level of excitement, are not like this one, which really bring with it a signature.
Fouled. That spells fouled.
Notice the difference between plain and dynamic?
Yes.
My good friend, the Duggar, back in gear. I'm loving it. All right. With that, now we bring in Dave Revsine, BTN. Dave, always great to have you with us. Welcome back.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Steve. Always fun to be on with you.
All right. So what's this week like for you to go through and have all these games one after another like this?
It is hectic. I mean, I call it our Super Bowl. Certainly in these last few years when the Big Ten Network has gotten the first 10 games now of the tournament, the fact we have every single team on our air at least one time, it's really changed the dynamic of it for us. I do think it's our biggest week of the year. I would gather there are probably some football Saturdays where we have more viewers, I would think, in aggregate than we do for the Big Ten tournament, but I'm guessing it's probably pretty close. But just in terms of the enormity of the event and for it to be all ours for those first 3 days, it's really cool. And so it's hectic, kind of getting ready for it. And I have a very kind of specific way I prepare. This is the 14th straight year I've done this role, and I probably over-prepare. I'm sure you're the same way. I think most people in our business are like that. You just kind of you never know what you're going to need, so you prepare way too much. But man, I look forward to it every year. I wish we were there this year. We are going to be in studio. I assume we'll be back next year for the tournament. But either way, it's just fun. We're on from the moment the pregame show begins until we wrap things up about an hour or so after the games. We're on the entire day covering basketball. We don't take a break on Thursday and Friday. And so, yeah, I'm fired up to get going and have Coach Beilein in the studio with us and Len Elmore joining us as well. It should be a really, really great week.
The conference, and I've said this many times on our broadcast, I think the conference has done a brilliant job getting as many games in as they did for everybody. When you look back on all of this, Dave, how phenomenal was it that they're actually getting to this point where they're playing this tournament, considering what the thought process may have been 6 months ago?
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing. And I know there was some criticism of the Big Ten for how it handled football. It's handled basketball brilliantly.
Yeah.
And the fact that essentially almost every game got played. It's crazy to think that, to me. And you know, they play a higher percentage of games in the Big Ten than any other power conference league did. So kudos to everybody. Kudos to the players. I think this was really challenging for them, as you were aware of, and all the support staff people and the coaching staffs as well. There were a lot of sacrifices made by a lot of people to make this happen. And so just thrilled we were able to get as much as we were in. And it's crazy to think we're back here. You know, I've kind of measured this entire pandemic by the Big Ten tournament. We were literally on the air doing a pregame show. We were 15 minutes into the pregame show, and I got word in my ear from our producer that the tournament was being canceled. And we pivoted and started doing that show.
Yeah.
It was one of the craziest days I've ever experienced professionally. We obviously had no idea what was coming. None of us did as a country. It's been incredibly painful and sad to see it, but it feels like we're emerging a little bit here, and I'm excited to kind of measure time by being back and by having a Big Ten tournament again.
Right, man. I feel the same way you do. I feel like that's exactly the measuring stick I've used as well, like as a starting point. And now you're right. It sounds like we're turning the corner. Let's see if they continue to do it, because that would be great. The next part of it is the quality of play. Last year, the Big Ten was thought to be, and I think you and I both felt the same way, like, wow, look at this on an every night basis. Did you have the same feeling watching it this year?
Well, I think it's better this year.
I do too.
I would say it's a little bit deeper. I just think, last year there were two really bad teams. I thought Northwestern and Nebraska were just bad teams last year. They're better this year, and they have shown that neither one of them is great. But again, they've shown that they can beat, really good teams. Northwestern's beaten Ohio State. I mean, Nebraska pounded Rutgers. So to me, that's where it's better. And then I also think the teams at the top are better. I thought last year we had a lot of really, really good teams, but we didn't really have 1 seeds. Now this year, I think we're going to have 2 1 seeds. I think we're going to have 4 teams on the top 2 lines by most bracketologists' measurements there. So they have half of the top 8. I just think that's crazy. So to me, I think it's better on 2 measures. I think the best teams are way better than they were, and I think the worst teams have gotten better too. And to me, that makes for a better league.
Yeah, you always measure. I always measure like, okay, the top's one thing, but what's the bottom like? I mean, are you going to pick up some easy wins along the way? Northwestern won its first 3, lost 13 in a row, won its last 3.
Symmetry.
Yeah. Penn State started out 0-5, went 7-7 its last 14. I mean, this is and look at what Nebraska's done. This is the bottom of the league.
Yeah. No, I know it's crazy. I mean, Nebraska took Illinois to overtime.
Yeah.
I mean, it is crazy how much better the league is. Penn State. I mean, you got to call the game yesterday. I mean, what an amazing comeback. And I think one of the things that's been really cool, and we were actually talking about this yesterday in studio in the context of the Northwestern-Nebraska game, because that was a game we had on our air, but it certainly applies to Penn State as well, is even the teams that don't really have a shot here, none of them have given up. And the coaching staffs, I think, have done an amazing job. I mean, I realize Minnesota's playing poorly, but to me that's a function of they lost 2 of their 3 best players, and they're not that deep to begin with, and I guess I just challenge you to find teams that are middle of the pack, the bottom middle of a power conference that can lose 2 of their 3 best players and not miss a beat. So I don't think that's a function of guys giving up or anything like that. But I think that's what's been really cool about it is it just feels like, especially with everything everyone's been through, like in football, there were just some teams that I think were ready to be done at the end of the Big Ten season. They just were. They were done. And for whatever reason, I just don't think that's been the case in basketball. Everyone's kind of like, hey, we'll keep playing until they tell us we can't play anymore. And I think that's really been something. And again, it's a testament to all of those kids and everyone who's made the sacrifices they've made.
You talk about playing without big-time players. Illinois had to play a couple of games without Ayo Dosunmu. What did you learn about that team, Dave, in watching them play without him?
They're so good, Steve. Yeah. I mean, I guess that was the biggest thing that I learned. I mean, to go into Michigan and not just beat Michigan, but beat them by 23 points without arguably the National Player of the Year. Now, I don't think he's going to get it, but you could make an argument for him to get it. And so, to me, that is arguably the National Player of the Year. I don't know if you saw this, but it was the largest margin of defeat at home for a top 2 team in the last 25 years in college basketball. You have to go back to Villanova in 95 going into UConn and beating them to find a larger margin of defeat. So it really remarkable how well they played in that game. But again, I mean, they beat Wisconsin in that stretch without him as well. And Wisconsin's certainly a really good team. And I think what we learned is Curbello's really good, man.
Yeah.
Like he has been willing, and not a lot of freshmen are willing to do this, but has said, hey, I'll play fourth fiddle. I'm okay with that. I understand where I stand. And you learn how good Trent Frazier is again.
Yeah.
Trent Frazier was their best player a few years ago.
Yep.
And again said, I get it. I'm willing to take a backseat to these other guys because that makes us better as a team. I think DeMonte Williams, that shot he hit against Ohio State, now Io was back in that game. So, you asked me about them without Io, but that moment with DeMonte Williams, like that encapsulates what makes Illinois so great. I mean, here is a guy who's hit 33-pointers now this year, who's shooting 55% from three. He had hit 35 threes his entire career coming into this year. You didn't need to guard him until the very end of last year. You could just not guard him. He didn't do anything offensively. And he's become a really good player for them that when he needs to hit a big shot can hit it. So, I mean, look, I think they're fabulous. I think Kofi is a ridiculous matchup for people. And one of the things I'd say here, Steve, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. And maybe I readily admit that I see the world through Big Ten colored glasses. And that, that's my job, and I get it. I watch college basketball. I watch everyone who's good. But I see it through the Big Ten lens. But I'll say this, man. Like, you go down the list of, Hunter Dickinson, Kofi Coburn, Luka Garza, Travion Williams, E.J. Liddell, go on and on and on with the big men in this league. Miles Johnson, I mean, you can just go Trace Jackson Davis, Liam Robbins when he's healthy. Yeah. I just don't think many teams in the country see big guys like this. And I think it's going to give the Big Ten a huge advantage in the tournament, particularly in some of these one-day turnarounds where, now everyone knows, everyone in the Big Ten has a plan for dealing with Luka Garza. Now, it's not necessarily a successful plan, but they have a plan. Like, they know, okay, guys, it's Luka, and here's what we're going to do. But, does everyone else have a plan for dealing with him? Yeah. And he's got a piece of cotton shoved up his nose because he's got a nosebleed, but he's still dropping threes on you, and he's breathing heavily on your big man who hasn't seen anything like him all year. And, again, you can say that about Kofi, and you can say that about so many, like John Harrah. Who's got a plan for dealing with that guy who's going to go relentlessly after every offensive board? I mean, I just think this league is different, man, and I hope this is the year where we really see in the NCAA tournament just how different it is.
Right, and that's the great sports philosopher Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until you get hit.
Yes. I almost cited that, but that's what it is, right? Everyone's got a plan for Luka until you're actually up against him, and he's throwing 4 different post moves at you and then taking you out to 22 feet and drilling 3 straight threes in your face.
Oh, and by the way, Williams, I mean, it used to be that it was his guy that would double Kofi. Now, what do? Right?
Yeah.
Now he hits a couple threes. You can't take your guy off him anymore. It's incredible. What have you thought about Michigan? I know down the stretch, obviously Illinois got him. Then yesterday, Michigan State got him. In fact, I'll change gears for 1 second. Michigan State, I think, is in. I watched the show last night when the game was over. I agree with you. Michigan State's in. What kind of credit does Tom Izzo get for understanding what his team is and playing to that style?
Well, yeah. I mean, they certainly changed the way that they played down the stretch.
No
doubt.
Were
very, very physical.
Yep.
I think it's a real shame what happened to Io, and I don't want to in any way overlook that. I don't think it was intentional.
I agree.
But again, it was a byproduct of how hard they were playing, and hey, we're going to go in there and we're going to give a ton of fouls, and we're going to make them earn at the line, and all that stuff. So But yeah, I mean, that stat we dropped on the show yesterday, I think is remarkable. I mean, they're the first team to beat 3 AP top 5 teams in a span of less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Since Miles Simon and Mike Bibby and those guys at Arizona made a run to the national championship in 1997. I mean, you come down the stretch and you beat Illinois, Ohio State, and Michigan. Like, you're in, man. Like, I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
Find me a team with a bubble resume better than that. So we all agree on that. Look, Tom's great. I mean, there's a reason that it's January, February, Izzo. I mean, there's a reason that this is his time of the year. The guy is just, he knows the buttons to push. And you don't make 23 straight NCAA tournaments, which I think he's going to, by accident. Right. I think he's got some pretty good guys. And let's give credit to Aaron Henry, who's been fabulous here down the stretch. How about Joshua Langford, who missed nearly 2 years with injuries, to hit that really important 3 yesterday against Michigan, when that game, all of a sudden there was some game pressure on them. So, yeah, I mean, I give Tom a ton of credit, but I give his guys credit, too, for it would have been really easy to just say, hey, man, it's not our year, but they didn't do that.
And the other part, again, so one thing in terms of voting for this, I kind of wish they had a Comeback Player of the Year award. Like the guy that's come back, Langford would be a phenomenal choice, obviously.
Great story.
Yeah, it is. And finally, Michigan. Michigan's lost a couple. We talked about the Illinois game. Yesterday, obviously, the stakes were big, but they lost Brooks during the course of the game. What kind of glue is Brooks for Michigan moving forward? Because Dickinson against some of these big guys has been terrific at times, and then the last couple of times he's looked like he's a younger guy.
He has. I mean, Kofi Coburn really dominated him, I thought, in that game. And, he's 1 of 8 from the field. Again, you're not going to see, okay, well, the strategy against Dickinson is to put your 7-foot-tall, 280-pound guy against him. Not everyone has a Kofi Coburn that they can just roll out there. We've got the solution to slowing down Hunter Dickinson. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Eli Brooks is a glue guy. He's a really good defender.
Yes.
The Michigan people will tell you they think he might be the best on-ball defender in the Big Ten, whether or not he wins Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Frankly, I don't think he's going to. But I understand the argument that you could make for him to win it. Mm-hmm. He's really good. He's in that elite group of guys who makes life miserable for whoever he is guarding. So, yeah, I think it's significant. I mean, they played without him against Minnesota and lost that game. Yes. They got blown out without him against Minnesota. So I don't think it's insignificant. I'm hopeful. Wieskamp got hurt, too, yesterday. And it was a brutal day. I mean, Wieskamp is, I think you can make an argument. I don't think he'll make first-team all-conference. But, again, I think you could make an argument for him to make first-team all-conference. I mean,
I agree.
He's a pro, Steve. He is a surefire pro.
I've said that to many people. He's the pro on that team. Yep.
He is really, really good, man. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I don't think the stakes are particularly large for either of those teams in the Big Ten tournament. Not to minimize the Big Ten tournament, because it is my goal to maximize the Big Ten tournament. But I think Michigan's a 1 seed. I think Iowa's a 2 seed, unless they were to maybe win the whole thing. And then, depending on what happens with some of these other teams, could they play their way on the one line? I doubt it, but maybe. So I don't know. I think those become interesting calculations for Juwan and for Fran McCaffery, kind of depending on how healthy those guys are, what you do with them in Indy.
I will let you get back to your preparation. I will get back to my preparation. and I just can't. I mean, all I know is it's some of the most enjoyable 15 minutes to sit down and talk, whether it's football, basketball, with you anytime.
Oh, thanks, Steve. The feeling's mutual, and it's always a pleasure to be on with you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. That's Dave Revsine, BTN. Yeah, my preparation is I had to teach class today. When I was done with class, I came back here, and I had the point guard brunch I had to MC at noon. So I had about an hour and a half. I spent the hour and a half running off Penn State information, then running off Nebraska information, including their last 6 box scores. Then I ran off Wisconsin information, and then I ran off Iowa information. tonight we'll get to work on doing all of that and make sure that by the time we get to the show tomorrow, we will have whatever prepped. Hey, it's all part of the joy of doing this. You may only use 3 to 5% of the material that you get, but the 3 to 5% changes every time. You want to make sure you've got everything covered, if need be, during the course of a broadcast. And believe me, to me, the people that get out of this get out of it for two reasons. One is they don't like the travel. I love the travel. And the preparation becomes tedious to them. And to me, I love it. So we'll come back with more in a moment. Brought to you by Purdy Insurance here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business. They'll take care of all your insurance needs. They'll do everything they can to save you money. Could be in bundles. But again, to them, customer service means everything. Everything. And they'll take care of that policy in you all the way through. It is all at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. We're in the Sunbury Motors studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai. Great new inventory, the best. Fabulous pre-owned inventory. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. All right, a lot going on. Of course, wrestling over the weekend. Penn State, look, it's the veterans in Iowa. It showed. They won 4 individual titles, won the team title. Penn State finished second, fielding a mostly freshman lineup. Aaron Brooks won his second consecutive Big Ten championship. Roman Bravo Young, Big Ten championship. Nick Lee, Carter Starachi, by the way, Big Ten Freshman of the Year, were finalists, and 9 out of the 10 qualified for the Nationals in St. Louis. We'll see what 10 days now means. 10 days can make a big difference. And what was interesting about this Big Ten championship was the number of guys that faced each other for the first time this season. It was rather limited this year. And you're going to find that at Nationals, too. You're going to find people facing each other for the first time this year. So there's a little air of mystery about it because of that. And Bucknell won, beat Lafayette. Well, it's great having Meeks back in the lineup, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
About him the other day. We talked about that the other day. Nathan will be back on the show tomorrow, but we talked about that the other day. There was that 3-game run where he had 86 points in the 3 games. I mean, that's a lot to miss when he's not around. And they will play Colgate on Wednesday. Colgate has been ranked in the metrics in the top 15 to 25 all season, I think in part because of the margin of victory of some of their games earlier in the year. So Bucknell will play up there on Wednesday. Nathan Davis joins us on the show tomorrow. Dick Girardi joins us on the show tomorrow. Needless to say, a lot going on. Penn State will play Nebraska, opening game Wednesday night, 9 o'clock. 8:30 the airtime. Nebraska's playing its best basketball of the season, even though they lost a tough one yesterday at Northwestern. They were down by double digits at one point. But Penn State also is going in playing its best basketball. 7-7 their last 14 after an 0-5 start. Got out to a good start early. They already have 6 wins against the field. But, of course, they're under 500. I mean, Penn State's metrics are great. And this will be probably a wide-open game. I think that this will be the third meeting between the two. I'm going to guess that the second game, where Penn State won 86-83, in terms of points and flow, will probably be closer to what we may see on Wednesday night. So I would think that that'd be the closest, I think, in terms of the flow of it. So that'll be at 9 o'clock. We're on beginning at 8:30, and then what time's the Colgate game on Wednesday?
7 o'clock airtime, 7:30 tip on Eagle 107.
Well, what happens if somebody's going to the bucket and gets hit on the play? I mean, do we know?
O-U-L-E-D, that spells foul.
Yeah. I wondered. Yeah. How about that? All right. Something I was talking about earlier, but I wanted to bring it up again. I don't know what's going to happen with Greg Gard. I don't know if he's going to be fined for what he said after the game yesterday. That I don't know. Because, he was talking about the officiating, and he feels that, for example, he didn't think Brad Davison gets a fair shake. And he doesn't so he sounded off after the game about the hook and hold on Brad Davison, which, by the way, I'm looking at it as a neutral party. Do I think it's a hook and hold on Brad Davison? No, I don't. Now, if you really want to get into the fine print, all right, in the fine print, yeah, technically, yeah, but do you call it there? In my opinion, no. I think there's so many times where you're better off not making a call, but that's just my opinion. I understand why. Look, but they went to the monitor so often yesterday. They really killed the flow of what was a terrific game. That Iowa and Wisconsin was a terrific game yesterday. But in the last 60 seconds, of the game, it took 19 minutes and 10 seconds to play 60 seconds because all the time that was spent at the monitor. And Greg Gard, the coach at Wisconsin, talked about the hook and hold on Brad Davison. When they ran through, I thought it was a foul just on Iowa.
People have questions about it, is the mockery that has now been made of the hook and hold or any type of thing. And it appears to have become a Brad Davison rule where it's become, quite frankly, a joke. Anytime there's a foul or a question, the opponents are yelling to the officials about the monitor, to go to the monitor. I saw the play. If college basketball is headed in this direction, we're in big trouble. It sickens me that we have games decided like this, and this is where it's at. That rule was not put in place for that. That was for safety of players. That was for post play. Those type of things happen on every single possession of the game, specifically in the post. So I think it's really turned into a joke. I feel bad for Brad Davison. The kid's a great kid, plays his ass off, but he continues to get screwed by this and how the officials and the league and opponents have continued to just call that out and put a spotlight on that and deaden the ball. And it's become sickening, really. It's made a mockery of college basketball, specifically in the positions we've been in.
All right. So as for Brad Davison, here's Brad Davison's biggest fault as a player that draws the ire of people. Brad Davison notoriously was not anymore, but was a flopper. Oh, it's like, and drawing it as, hey, drew another charge. And like, you're looking at him like, the guy didn't touch him. And he flies back as if he got thrown by somebody. And that's where he's caught a lot of flack, because he's created it himself. And the officials would not call flopping. And that was a big part of it. But in terms of the hook and hold, Greg Gard is not incorrect. That rule was put in about post play, but even then, no offense. And the hook and hold was put in because Isaac Haas got hurt so badly in the NCAA tournament. It was an NCAA tournament game. He got hurt so badly. And that's why they put the hook and hold in. Abdu Timbila was called for a hook and hold against Iowa because he and Garza were both going after a ball that was in the air and their arms were just locked up. Well, both guys landed on their feet. And, they were trying to tip the ball. It was going away from the basket. It wasn't going toward the basket. They both tipped the ball, and their arms were locked, whatever, right? Or, interlocked. And they called Timbila for hook and hold. And you're looking around saying, what are you talking about? How can you make that call when neither guy went to the floor and they're both just going after tipping it and one's not trying to pull the other back from it? And it was one of those like, really? Are you kidding me? And and that one, Timbila and Garza, was not my definition of a hook and hold, and absolutely the Davison play yesterday with Murray was not a hook and hold. They spent too much time yesterday at the monitor. They ruined the game. It got to the point where I'm sitting there, I'm watching, and I watched it all the way through. But there's a point I looked around and said, I got to turn this thing off. What the heck? You can't, if you can't figure out in 30 seconds what the deal is, literally. Now, sometimes you go over the monitor and the monitor's not on, they don't have the right picture. I got that. That part I have. Because you are at the mercy of what the producer sends you, and you're also at the mercy of the technology there. That part I understand completely. But if you can't figure out in 30 seconds, because, this is your bona fide second look at it. If you can't figure out in 30 seconds what it is, then you got to go with the call on the floor. It's too much. That there, for the most part, I've seen fewer monitors this year, but not in that game. That game became there was so many monitor reviews that it really took away from the game. You've got to be able to, to me, you got to be able to make up your mind. Let's be generous, 30 to 45 seconds. You don't see what you want to see in 45 seconds. You're done. Call on the floor. Play ball. Play ball. And do I think it was a hook and hold? No. Do I think the Timbila calling with Garza was hook and hold? No. They were both tipping the ball. You're like, going, what the heck? And Dick and I are looking at each other like, you called that? Really? They've got to get away from... Oh, and in fact, I didn't give you the best one. I didn't give you the best one of the weekend. You'll love this. You will love this. Kid, I'm not going to tell you which game it is, all right? Kid scored a basket and went, and won, and got teed for saying it. And the coach of the team, I'm not kidding. This is you're talking about a conference tournament game.
Oh, boy.
This was a conference tournament game, right? And I know who the official is. Believe me, I know exactly who it is, right? The coach went over. He says, "When did it become a technical foul to yell and one?" He says, "When I say it is." What?
What a dope.
Here's one for. I'm not going to say who the player was, what the game was, or the name of the official. I'm not. All right. I know all the parties involved here. And I think he said, I think the coach said, saying and one is not a technical foul. And the answer was, well, today it is. Holy mackerel.
See, if whatever conference you're referring to, if they get that tape, that official should be gone immediately.
I can guarantee, because I know who the official is, that he will not be touched.
And college basketball wonders why they have the issues they have today. If you don't hold anybody accountable, you're never going to fix it.
I can guarantee you this will be an official that you see prominently next week. Not in the Big Ten. It's not a Big Ten official. It's not a Big Ten official, but it'll be an official that you'll see prominently. I meant to say this week. You'll see this official this week prominently, and you will see him in the NCAA tournament. The kid yet and one. Technical foul?
F-O-U-L-E-D, that spells foul.
B-R-E-A-K, break. On News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle with a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you, the other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
Sasser to midcourt. That's Mark at the buzzer. It's good! It's good! Tremont Mark at the buzzer! I mean, this is some pass. Mark off balance three. It looks good. Penny Hardaway storming off the court. Again, it's been called good on the floor.
It would have been better if he'd said that was his hero. That's how I look at it. Is Shikellamy done? They're playing?
They have the semifinals tonight, hosting Bellefonte as the number 2 seed in the District 4-6 5A semifinals tonight, 6:45 airtime. Tip off at 7.
We should have had the chief call into the show to preview the game. Because I think it's good that on game day that he's allowed to speak once.
By the way, shout out to the Bucknell volleyball team.
Yeah.
They defeated American yesterday for the first time in over 20 years.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. Way to go. Way to go. Well, we had a lot going on today. Our thanks to Dave Revsine, BTN, Mark Brennan, 24/7 Sports. Tomorrow, Nathan Davis on the show. He'll join us at 3:35. Dick Girardi on the show tomorrow. Just keep it rolling. All brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, Home, Life, Business. They'll make sure you are insured. And they'll take great care of you. Customer service means everything. Back here in the Sunbury Motors studio in about an hour, Sandy Barber, Jim Ferry, the guests tonight on the Penn State Coaches Show.